by saying so. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to today's podcast. Today, I'm going to be speaking to Kristen Chester. She was actually found out that she had breast cancer at the age of 34. Now, it's not only because she was a young breast cancer diagnosis, but she was also 6.5 months pregnant with her child. So obviously, her whole world has turned upside down. But however, that traumatic experience turned out to be quite transformational, leading her to her success and the stressful job, leaving her successful and stressful job, like most of us done, as a management consultant, and pursue her dream, starting her own fashion brand. Now, she's the founder of Chief Craft or Caftanista or Casa Danu. I hope I said that right. And so I can't wait to speak about it, because why not do, like I always say to people, most of us who get diagnosed get creative. So having said all of that, welcome, Kristen. Welcome.
Thank you, Grace. I am so excited to be here, and just, on such an amazing podcast that features women who have kind of gone through some of the toughest parts of our lives. And it's just awesome to be with somebody else who's gone through that and has kind of come out on the other side. Again, I'm Kristen Chester. As Grace, as you mentioned, I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer at the age of 34. I found out when I was 6.5 months pregnant, as you mentioned. And that kind of just, as you can imagine, just started a full trajectory of a life that I did not expect, right? Or had anticipated. And so after I got diagnosed, I didn't even know at that point. Like, I was diagnosed and I was pregnant. I didn't know what would happen with my baby. I mean, the first thing that came to my mind is what happens to my child, and found out very quickly that you can do chemo while you're pregnant after a certain kind of developmental perspective point. So did multiple rounds of chemo, induced my son, Rowan, about 4 weeks early so that I could get in more chemo kind of as quickly as possible. 2 weeks after I gave birth, I was back in the chemo chair in the infusion center. And I did another 6 rounds of chemo. I took a break for a month to recover, and then did a double mastectomy and reconstruction. And I've had multiple surgeries since then, just from complications. And it's been about a year and a half since I was kind of cleared. And so it's been pretty kind of life altering and changing, as I'm sure you find with most of your guests.
Oh my goodness. I do. But the thing is, why this one here is the stories are different is because you happen to be, and it's not because I'm searching for people young, but you happen to be one of my second youngest guests.
Oh, really?
But not only that, yes. So, but not only that, you're also someone who's gone through, not only now, like you said, not only now are you looking after yourself, you have now a child to look after. So that would be, I can only imagine that would be just, wow, like, okay, what happens to my child? Because that's exactly what I thought. What happens there? I didn't know you could do chemo. But, having said that, how did you get through? And we're probably talking about it too early, but how did you get through even the first 4 months of knowing I've just been diagnosed with cancer? I have to have chemo. I've just had a child. I now have to have a double mastectomy, or however long that took. Now I have to have a reconstruction. I still have to be a mum. Did you breastfeed? Did you not breastfeed? All of these things. This is all important.
Yeah. Tip of the iceberg. So I will I found out actually when I was as kind of you mentioned in the intro, I was a management consultant, and my client was down in Mexico. So I was actually down in Mexico when I got the call. Kind of moved, my parents and my husband moved hell and high water to get me on a plane back. Kind of they flew out from California. We all convened. And we met with the doctor that week, and, kind of immediately was I think found out kind of what the treatment plan was going to be. And I remember the first night, my husband and I stayed up all night, like sobbing. And also, I mean, this is going to sound dumb, but watching Fixer Upper on HGTV because we just needed something to distract our minds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, there was this, I think there wasn't quite a sense of relief, but when I found out that, I could do chemo while still pregnant, and everything that had been from all of the research had shown that there's not a negative impact to the child. I mean, that took a huge weight off of my shoulders, right? Because it was like, I mean, I felt like before I knew that, it was like, okay, well, my choice is to not do treatment, right? Because I can't go under for a mastectomy right now because they can't put me under because I can't go from an anesthesiologist perspective. And so I can delay treatment until I have this baby. Now, I don't know, like my cancer was pretty aggressive. And so from a spreading fast, I was like, okay, well, I could delay it. I could have the baby. And then I don't know how much that's going to impact kind of my longer term, viability basically. And if he's going to have a mom for very long, right? So I think it was a huge sense of relief once I learned that it was feasible for me to get treatment, and also have my baby. Obviously it's still in the back of your mind, like, oh my God, is the key, like what's happening within, like in utero? Is he going to be okay? And I think in that first month, it was obviously really, really, really difficult. I think once I got a game plan of what my treatment plan was going to be, then it was like, okay, let's just do it. Like we need to get in there. We need to do it. We have a plan. Let's execute. I honestly think, I mean, there were a lot of difficult things about it, but I think one of the worst things and the worst times and parts is that time of like unknowing, right? And without having your plan and knowing what you're going to do. And so kind of once we got through that and began to get into the kind of the chemo cycles, I kind of just got into this mindset of, okay, this is it. This is what we're doing. This is what I have to do. I think the first month was really, really, really hard. But I kept and I think this is what I tried to do throughout my entire journey is I knew that if I didn't keep myself positive and those around me positive, then it was just going to manifest itself kind of in my own body, or I just had this feeling like I have to stay positive. Now, there were many times where I was alone in my shower, like sobbing, like because I was like, and just telling myself like, you are strong enough. You are strong enough. You are strong enough. You can do this. You are going to be Rowan's mom. Like it is going to happen. But it took, I'm very lucky. I had a lot of like support from my husband, a lot of support from my family, a lot of love from my friends. But it did take, I think, a lot of self-will to remain positive, kind of throughout that journey, and just kind of almost like, I hate to say it, but like a positive, like stubbornness, like I'm like, I am going to fight this. And like, I'm going to be this little boy's mom, and I'm going to be here, and I'm going to be healthy. Not to say that I didn't have many, many breakdowns, but I think that's kind of how I got through that first month.
Yeah, so that's like you just said, you have to. I was actually talking about this with someone who I interviewed a while back, and I just happened to just chat with her, and she said, I hate when people say to be positive. And I thought, it's not when people say to be it's not saying just be positive, like,
Yeah.
I'm positive, and your mind's like, BS, you're not
exactly.
positive. It's how you restructure the way that our brain could, I was saying this to her. I said, our mind could be our best friend and it could be our worst enemy.
Exactly.
So our mind could turn around and say, nah, you ain't going to do this, because it's always talked like that to us.
Always.
We would never be best friends.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're saying to yourself, I see where you're coming. And it's like you looked at it every time you had those moments, you looked at it and you thought, you know what, I'm just going to make sure that you're not going to override me. Because actually, one of the things that my surgeon actually said, someone who goes under the knife stressful, apparently the cancer spreads even quicker while you're stressed.
Yeah.
So
I'm not surprised. And something that I did that was, I also, which I think is very helpful, and I highly recommend to those who have the ability to get the services, is I had a therapist who I was using regularly. I mean, she'd been my therapist for years because I had dealt with anxiety and depression and stress for many, many years leading up to this. And she helped me reframe. And so I moved from saying, like, I know this may not work for everybody, but it worked for me. I reframed it as, instead of like, I'm fighting cancer, I'm doing this, it's like, this is my healing journey. And when I go get chemo, it is my healing elixirs. And that is what we're going to call it. And I made sure that when I told my friends, my family, this is what we're calling it. There are power in words. There are power in how we think about things. And so everybody knew, like, this is Kristen's healing journey. She's going to go get her healing elixirs. This is what is going to happen. And, at first I was, I just had to reframe and retrain my brain to make it work for me. Because I knew that I was like, there's already enough like shittiness going on right now with this situation. I need to reframe it. It is in my power to reframe it. Like, it's not a great situation, but like, I need to figure out a way to get through this. And this is my way.
Yeah. And I believe it's beautiful the way you said that, because I said the same. I'm just on a healing journey. I never, I put so much love into my cancer. And I don't mean to say to people, love get cancer. I put so much love into it because I knew, like you said, the opposite. If I say I hate it, I don't want it, well, your mind's going to go, well, this is what she wants, because she keeps saying the word want cancer, want cancer. It doesn't hear the word do not want. It just kept hearing want cancer. So I kept saying, this is, you know what? I didn't let it define who I was. I never let it. For me, it was like I use a metaphor. It was like a broken arm. You don't stop. You eat, you drink, you go and see friends, you still go shopping, you still do things. That's what I put it under my armpit like an old handbag and said, we're going. I got no time for you.
I love that, Grace. And that's kind of exactly what I tried to do. And obviously, as you know, like, it's hard to get motivated. There are many times because you are flat out exhausted and you are just like, that treatment, any of the treatments kind of just, I mean, you are more tired than you can ever even imagine. And I was pregnant and I was going through it. So it was like the combo, which was, I was flat out, but, like you said, it was like, okay, I need to treat this as, I tried to separate myself from the cancer and really looked at it as, okay, this is just a ball of highly replicating like cells. That's what it is. Like, I'm not going to attach any other emotions to it. I'm not going to attach any other, I'm going to try not to attach any other negativity to it. Of course that came up.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if I just looked at it objectively as what this was, and that I was doing what I could to treat it and to kind of to work to like release it basically, that's what worked for me. It's not going to work for everybody, but that's kind of the way that I had to reframe and retrain my brain around like the idea of cancer, which I think holds such heaviness, obviously, for
absolutely
most everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. So let me ask that. I guess I've got this question that Do you believe someone who has, in your situation, if you were to step out and just be a woman diagnosed with breast
Yeah.
cancer but wasn't pregnant and
Yeah.
things like that, do you think you would have had the same strength? And what I mean by that is,
Yeah.
I'm not a mother myself, but I know that where the moment you become a mother, you are a totally different person. You are now more protective of everything.
Yeah.
So I understand that. I understand that from a woman's point of view, that you become even more protective. Do you think that you even stepped it up because you were having a child? Does that make sense?
Oh, no, it totally does.
Mm.
I absolutely did. I mean, I have like no, I think I like to think that if I hadn't been pregnant, I mean, and this was my first and only child, but if I hadn't been
Mm.
pregnant, I like to hope and think that I would have approached it in a similar way.
Mm.
However, I think that there was a like fierceness and determination that was there because I was I this was another life that I was carrying,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
and I, wanted desperately to bring this life into the world and also more than that, be this little boy's mom and like
Mhm.
give him a beautiful life. And so I absolutely do think that the fact this happened while I was pregnant and then while I was kind of a first time mom of
Mm.
my first son or I think any child, right? I think it
Mhm.
did
Mhm.
add that absolutely extra level of fierceness that I
Yeah.
may not have had.
Yeah. And then now you're going through your chemo, you're
Yeah.
pregnant, you've had your baby boy, beautiful baby boy,
Mhm.
and now you're still going through chemo. So how did you then juggle, not just physically, emotionally, psychologically, how did you juggle being mum and also being
Yeah.
a cancer, someone who was healing themselves?
Yeah. I mean, it was really hard. And I would say like, the first month was hard, but I would say after giving birth to Rowan for multiple months afterwards, it
Mm.
was very emotional. I mean, emotionally hard. I was very lucky in that my my parents, because this all happened I was diagnosed in January 2020. Kind of the world shut down in April
March, yeah,
2020,
April, yeah,
March,
yeah.
April. My son was born April 10th.
Mm.
And so, and my parents had come out to help with as I was, starting up chemo treatments and stuff.
Mm.
And they live in Los Angeles. I live in Atlanta. And they actually got stuck basically in
Mm.
Atlanta.
Oh, wow, of course. Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, I mean, they could go back, but
Mm.
it was all the unknowns that were happening. And they also didn't know how or when they were going to be able to come back in time for Rowan's birth. So,
Mm.
um, I had my husband supporting me. I had my parents here supporting me and helping to take care of Rowan. But I think the hardest part was I was so drained and exhausted physically
Yeah.
and just like beat down that I didn't feel like I was like being a good mom,
Oh.
And like
Mm.
especially as like a first, I mean, I just didn't feel like I was not that I didn't connect with him, but I mean there are many
Mhm.
like that's normal for many
Absolutely,
women after
absolutely.
they've
Yeah.
given birth, but I didn't feel like I wasn't the one who I didn't breastfeed because
Mhm.
of the chemo that would be then
Mhm.
kind of go into him. So,
Correct.
I would feed him and I would hold him, but, you know, most of like my support structure was taking care of him for most of the time and they were also taking care of me because I was
Mm.
in bed for
Mhm.
a lot of it. And I would have days where I couldn't get out of bed and then have some days where kind of at the end of my chemo cycle where I'd start to have more energy and be able to engage more. But it
Mm.
was really, really, really depressing and difficult because I felt like, I was a first time mom, right? So like trying to
Of course,
navigate
yeah.
figuring out
Yeah.
what that means. And
Mhm.
then I was a first time mom who like didn't feel like she was doing enough for her son, but also like physically like was not necessarily capable of doing that. So, you know, I think it was very, I mean, I just remember like crying to my mom, to my husband, just that, you know, I felt awful. I felt like I wasn't
Mm.
being the mom, a good enough mom for him.
Mm.
So
But my heart goes out to you, and I thank you for sharing that
yeah.
moment. But I believe, if anything, you stepped up to be the best mum for Rowan, because you needed to be there. You didn't give up. You never once gave up on him.
Yeah.
You didn't give up on yourself. So the thing is, I mean, this is a process you'll process through. You're probably going through it, or you probably have gone through it. But you know what I mean? But this is a process that you'll eventually see, you know, down the line. You'll look back on it. And, you know, one of the things that my husband always talks about in his coaching is never look at things two-sided. Look at things in a sphere.
Oh, I love
so
that.
When you go back, look at things in all sides. So when you get those moments thinking, you know, what you just said, look at things in all sides, you know what I mean, to help you process it. Because this is a child who loves you unconditionally.
Yeah.
You know, you got to remember that this child loves you unconditionally. So, so thank you for sharing that. So I want to now touch on, so here you are, you're a mum now, you know, you've gone through your chemo, you're going through the process of healing on your journey. And then, so when did the dream of starting your own business come in? When did that start before? Was that always like,
that was always hanging out in the ether? And I was,
there you go.
you know, it was never fashion. That was never, but I always knew since I was a little girl that I always had ideas, like business ideas. And I remember talking like with my aunt and like coming up with different little business ideas, like board games and like, and all kinds of things.
Beautiful.
But I had followed like a pretty like traditional corporate path and had been pretty successful in that, and had never, you know, found like the right idea or an idea that I was going to like jump ship to go pursue. And so, you know, as I was going through this healing journey, and, you know, it was, you know, chemo and then the surgery, and, you know, you literally, I mean, at least I know, because I've talked to a lot of other women, like you not only like physically feel like at your lowest, right? But you look very different than what you think of yourself on the inside.
Yeah.
And it's and it can be quite shocking. And even though it's like, okay, we all say like, okay, like, you know, I'm not vain, or, you know, whatever it might be, it's still that the outward kind of manifestation of you is not matching kind of who you believe to be on your inside. And that's really, really difficult. And I remember that I was feeling just so low like energy. And then I was in this uniform of just like men's oversized button down shirts and men's oversized sweatpants, because that was what was comfortable. I was in bed most of the time. I mean, I probably showered like once every 5 days or something, you know. It was just like, and I remember catching myself in the mirror and being like, that's not you. And not that that's a problem. Like that's what I need to be wearing. And that's where I was at. And I just had this like glimmer of, I just wish that I could be wearing something that was so comfortable, but was also like made me feel chic and fabulous and glamorous, even though I'm feeling at my worst. And so I just had this like silly idea. I was like, I don't know why people aren't wearing like I would really love a 1960s super bold, colorful caftan, and I could just lounge around it all day, go to my chemo appointments. And it was just an idea that I had, and I joked around about it, like with my sister and with other people for a long time, like for a year.
Yeah.
And then I ended up not less, it was probably less than a year, but I ended up back in the one. And then I ended up kind of just sharing it with some other women who hadn't gone through cancer, but were my age. And they're like, whoa, like we would want that. And I was like, oh, like this isn't just some silly idea that I came up with. And so I ended up back in the hospital because I had complications from my reconstruction, and I was there for a week. And I was so bored. I had gone through all the Netflix, all the Amazon Prime, and like my mind was just not being used.
Yeah.
And sounds so silly, but I literally Googled, how do you start a fashion brand? And
Perfect.
I started to research, and I started to pull things together. And I happened to find an amazing incubator for sustainable fashion startups. And I think by the grace of the universe, they were like the applications for the next round of students were due the next day.
Wow.
And I said, okay, let's do it. I threw in an application for this silly idea I had, and they accepted me. And that was last June. And now I'm planning to launch kind of my first collection in June of this year. So it's definitely not something I ever imagined I would be doing. And but I do think it's part of this, part of the healing process.
Yeah.
Is this creativity coming out in ways that like I just never expected.
Well, it's quite funny because, like yourself, I came from corporate Australia, if you want to say that. I worked in we have 4 leading banks, and I worked in 3 of the 4 leading banks, So I was always, traveling for the banks and things like that, interstate, all of that stuff. Then I had enough of it, and I went into construction with my husband. So for 10 years, I was the office girl. So I was still looking at finances, things like that. And then I realized, going through my path and all that, the name behind me has always been there. When I met my husband 21 years ago, and the name behind me, the Angels of Grace, I actually registered the name, and I had no idea. That is actually, so my surname, De Angeli, is the Angels of.
Yeah.
So, and that's why I did it. I just love the name. So I always used to say, may you find your angel, the angels go. But I never had anything. It was stuck in the bottom of a drawer.
Yeah.
Didn't even look at it. Yeah. Until, like you said, the moment you sort of go, well, it's, here you are in a corporate job, in a beautiful, successful corporate job, but it's not doing you justice.
Yes.
And I love the way you said, because I always talk about your authenticity. When you're not congruent with who you are, that's when it's going to start ruffling feathers. Something's going to give.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I have, listen, I am no doctor, so I do not, but I have a very strong genetic history of breast cancer in my family. My mom had breast cancer. She's now 7 years out, I believe. My grandmother had breast cancer. She passed away at the age of 54. My great-grandmother had breast cancer. She passed away in her 70s. But I've been genetically tested. They haven't found any of the genes. My mom has one of the genes. That doesn't mean that I don't have one of the genes. It just means that they don't know what it is yet. Correct?
Yeah. That's right.
However, I do believe that the stress and anxiety that I went through for the last decade of my life exacerbated a cancer that was already going to happen at some point, right? But made it happen earlier. I just kind of deep down know that that's what happened, or have a theory that that's what happened. And so that it was that, as you say, kind of in authenticity and incongruence that I think helped to bring this about. And, I hate when people say things happen for a reason, but sometimes they do.
They do. They do. Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, I always say to people, was I surprised I had breast cancer? Yeah. Was I surprised I got breast cancer? No.
Exactly.
Because at part of me, when you look back, you realize, hang on a minute, I haven't been honest with who I was inside.
Yeah.
I need to start being honest with me. And that's when we sort of, and I always say to people, don't wait for the baseball bat. For me, this was a baseball bat.
Oh yeah, me too.
And so don't wait for the baseball bat. Do what is more authentic to yourself, because if you don't do it, and like yourself, I believe, I'm not sure, I'm just going to assume here, and I shouldn't. In my hallucination, like I say, I would say that you were doing a 9-to-5 job like the rest of us, thinking this is going to pay the bills. I've got to do a 9-to-5 job. Yep. I'm moving up in the ladder here and there, it's all da. But it wasn't who you were.
No, I mean, and there were lots of elements I loved about my job, and I loved the people, and I was good at it. And
absolutely.
And it was hard but there was always something that was like an undercurrent that I just kept pushing away. And and again, like, and also just, I mean, there were, I think, as you said, like the baseball bat is a perfect analogy. I feel like I had multiple things that happened to me in the years leading up to my diagnosis that were like, okay, it's time. Okay, it's time. Okay, Kristen, we're here. We're going to remind you again. And then it was finally like, okay, sorry, like you're not paying attention. We're going to bring in the big guns. And that's what happened.
But see, isn't it, the thing is, I was talking to one of another lady just the other day, and we look at it as a gift. And a lot of people think, how could you look at it as a gift? You look at it as a gift. And the reason I say that, it's not just the fact that, you're now into fashion and stuff like that, you're doing a brand, things like that. What I mean by the gift is it allows us to reset who we were put on this earth to be, and our purpose in life. And our purpose, no matter what it is, and it can change all the time, but what it's done is it's reset us to be more authentic. And I always say to people, no matter whether you're going to go in 20 years or 20 days or 20 seconds, if you know who you are on the inside, you're ready to check out no matter what time. But the thing is, it gets us. Sometimes life says, I'm going to push you because I need you to, when the day comes in 100 years from now, I need you to go, I'm good. I did it. I did it, and not, oh, I should have got an extra client. Oh, I should have brought an extra house.
Yeah.
It's not going to be about that.
Totally. And I think what was like and this is, I am very open. Like I am still very much in the process, and like in the process of processing as well as in the process. Right. And I have always, I remember like since being a little girl, kind of had this very colorful, fiery, bold kind of like spirit inside of me. But I was always very self-conscious and I muted myself. And I continued to it's this kind of analogy that it came to me as like, it's like this kind of putting layers upon layers upon layers upon layers upon layers. And it took this breast cancer and being pregnant and all of this as like a push to be like, she needs to come out, and you need to like come into who that person is.
Absolutely.
And that's part of this brand that I'm creating is I want to create like incredibly like comfortable, but like bold, colorful, like powerful feeling clothes for women to help them feel that way and to unearth kind of what that fiery spirit is within them. And I'll be honest, and like, I'm still figuring that out for myself, like, and figuring and getting comfortable with that, right? Getting comfortable with, oh, like, this is in me, and I'm putting it out
Mm-hmm.
there, but I'm still like, oh God, how are people going to react?
Yeah.
Like, and should I like tamper myself down? And I mean, that's kind of the part of the process that I'm in now.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. I always say that. The thing, it's actually quite interesting because I was like that too. Suppressed. I was the wife. My husband always stepped forward, even though he was the sort of husband that was like, you need to walk beside me, stop walking behind me. I grew up in an environment, where no, the man is whatever the man wants, whatever the man needs, you look after him, da 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 da. And I never put my needs. But the moment I was diagnosed, it's like, okay,
sorry,
this is what I need now, and you're going to listen to me now. So, so please don't ever. We learn the word no for others, not for ourselves.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
So true.
Yeah. So, but the thing is now, so you've got this. I love the fact that you're actually starting off this brand, and and you're doing these clothes and things like that. So I love the way, because what you said before is it's part of you. So you're expressing yourself through the colors, through the styles and everything like that. But also what you'll find is, or do you find that you're actually looking at others, women who have also, like you and I, they're hiding.
Yeah.
They're hiding. So it's not necessarily, like you said, it's not necessarily just women with breast cancer.
Right.
It's any woman. We've been told to be a certain mold when we're trying to break through that mold. And we're not feminists trying to break through and grow our hairy armpits and things like that. We're just trying to be who we were born to be.
Yeah. And I honestly think most women, I could be wrong, like most women have this incredibly, like, it's this beautiful combination of like nurturing and also fierceness and boldness and firiness and creative source. And, whether it's society or whether it's you just get bogged down in the day-to-day of everyday life. I think we're just as women, and as kind of how society has kind of trained us to be, as you said, we put everybody else's needs above ours. And so I want to create, I understand that they're just clothes, but I want to create clothes that help women feel that way, right? And start to express some of that. And it's like, my clothes aren't going to appeal to every woman, right? But I want them to feel like joyful and like exuberant and vibrant when they put them on. And that's really like my goal with Casa Danu is to do that, right? It just happens to be through clothes. And that's what I'm trying to do.
Like, the thing is, it's you just said about women who are nurturing, but we're fierce.
Yeah.
I mean, the biggest example of that is Mother Earth.
Yeah, absolutely.
She can nurture you and she can destroy you,
Absolutely.
So the thing is, that's what it is. That's what us women are. And the reason I wanted to I stress this is because, as I said, you're not just a breast cancer survivor. You are a breast cancer survivor with a newborn. Yeah. And I want people to understand that that's possible as well. Okay. Yes. So don't feel it's not possible. So, and like you're saying now, you're bringing in this fire, you create, and what it's doing is it's healing your path. It's healing your path. So I quite like that. So, you know what I mean? I quite like the fact that it's not only are you creating this, I always say to people, you are now at service to others, no matter how it is.
Exactly.
You put at service for others. And I think that's an amazing thing to do. I really do. Are you wearing one of your outfits now?
I am. It's
this is beautiful.
Thank you. You can't really, sorry, I'm going up and down.
That's all right. That's okay.
But I am, yeah. And it's for this first collection, and actually I think you'll appreciate this. So I'm also Italian heritage and also and Irish heritage. And so actually the name Casa Danu, Danu is one of the kind of original Celtic or Irish, it's like creation goddess. And
beautiful.
Casa in Italian is house. So House of Danu. And so I wanted something that brought kind of my ancestry through in terms of the name. And so for this first collection that I'm going for, it's going to be small. It's just going to be kind of one caftan, and then I'm doing a coordinated set of a blouse and a pant, but in fun print and bold, bright colors. Like there are no neutrals in this world.
Yeah.
And the collection theme is La Dolce Vita. And
yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And the whole idea of that there is a sweetness to every moment of life. And I think I took that for granted before I went through my journey. And so I wanted to make sure to, I think from this first collection, to not only represent my heritage and my ancestry, but also really focus in on this beauty of take advantage of every moment of life and enjoy it. Like there's pleasure in it. Enjoy it. And so that's what the first collection is inspired by. And so it's really fun. It's a really, I mean, it's stressful starting a business, as I'm sure you know. And I'm going through all of the ups and downs of that. But when I kind of take time to step back, and it's like, oh, I'm actually creating something really beautiful. That is also, it's a manifestation of me. It's part of my healing process. But I'm also really hopeful that it's going to bring other women joy.
Absolutely. And the thing is, what you got to look at too is, like you just said, you're going through the ups and downs. But if you're on a road trip and it's a straight road for 20 hours, it is so boring.
Right.
Whereas, if you've got a roadblock, if you've got a, pothole, you've got roadworks, you've got an accident that's happened up ahead or something, or there's a massive wind coming through. You know what I mean? It's just something changed. And you adapt. Yeah. It's part of the adventure. And what do? You adapt. You don't turn back. You just stop the car and you adapt to that. Oh, there's a pothole. I got to go around it. Oh, there's roadworks. Okay, I got to detour. Oh, there's a wind coming. Okay, I got to sit back and embrace. Exactly. So, you know what I mean? And that's the beauty of our journey in life. And like you said, though, it's appreciation. Yeah. You don't realize how much, one of them, don't know if it was Seneca, someone, and I'm going to misquote it unbelievably, but talks about, it's not that we don't have a lot of time. It's we spend time wasted.
Yes, exactly.
So, and that's what it is. What happens is, unfortunately, but fortunately, we get to the point, like us too, where life says, I don't want you to waste anymore.
Absolutely.
I need you to wake up. I need you to understand how beautiful and how precious that this is. And it humbles you. I don't know about you, but it humbled me so much. I was never one to be, push everyone down, but I just became so humble, humble.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And it just was I think everybody would expect, right? But just a huge, huge wake up to say, okay, it is time I had been putting mostly work ahead of everything else in my life, and ahead of myself, ahead of my health, ahead of my marriage, ahead of my family, ahead of my friends. And I think the combination of the breast cancer and what I went through, having a baby, all of that together was like, okay, it's you've got to enjoy this life, right? Yeah. I mean, it could end tomorrow. Like you said, you could be hit by a truck,
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so start doing something that you want to do. And it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you should just do it.
But isn't that the fun part when it's not easy? Because like I said before, if it was just easy, it'd be boring.
Exactly.
So, you know what I mean? But don't get us wrong, those that are watching or listening, we're not telling you to struggle.
No.
and stress. We don't want you to stress anymore. We don't want you to struggle anymore, but we want you to enjoy the highs and lows, look at them, learn from them, appreciate them, and be grateful for them, because it allows us to grow to who we're supposed to be today. So the thing is, so your collection comes out in June, you said, which is super exciting. And after this, I'll discuss. I think there's someone who would be a really amazing if you happen to get woman, because she's a breast cancer survivor and she's also a model. But
always good.
Yeah, so double whammy there. So comes out in June. So where can people find you? Where can people find more about this collection?
Of course. So you can find me on Instagram at Casa Danu. And then also I send most of a lot of my updates through my email list. So if you go to casadanu.com, you can sign up, and I send emails probably once every 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm not in your inbox constantly, but it's just about the kind of journey of starting this business, insights into the decisions I'm making around the collection, getting my community's feedback on what they want, what they like, what they don't like, and giving them all the updates kind of leading up to launch. The goal is, fingers crossed, that all the ducks line up, that that we launch in June, and that people are wearing fabulous caftans and great, beautiful palazzo pants come our summertime, your guys' wintertime. But
yes, don't remind me. So let me ask you this question. Here we are, a year and a half later, and if you could sit across from yourself right now, if you could watch yourself from a different, you're in the same room and you're watching yourself, what would you say about Kristen today?
Yeah, I would first say you're coming out the other end, and you are so much stronger than you are. And there's a lot of beautiful, fun, amazing things ahead that you can't even imagine at this point. And they're coming your way. And so just stay strong, stay grounded within yourself, stay loving, and stay positive, because you're going to get there, and it's going to be way different than you could have ever imagined, but in the best possible way.
Wow, that is so beautiful. That is, I'm sitting here holding my hands so I don't cry. Because it is, it's when you're able to say that to yourself, it's the most empowering moment. That I do it as well. I tell people that I can stand in front of the mirror and tell myself that I love myself so much. I have my back. Yes. I always say, Grace, I have your back. Nothing's going to happen to you. I have your back. And when you can really say that, even if it's in tears in your eyes, but you can really say it from the soul, it's the most beautiful moment where you can connect with your inner self, So, and I can see your authenticity. I really can. So, and I love it. So, I want to be able to let you bring anything else up that you want to share. Absolutely.
No, I think that I think for women, any woman who might be listening, who maybe was just diagnosed or who is going through it, I think your journey is going to be your own journey. And I think what's worked for me, what's worked for Grace may not work for you, but just, I want you to know that this is not the end of your journey at all. And that you are absolutely not alone. I think what I have found since going through my healing journey is there's such a powerful community of women who've gone through this experience. And it's something that I just didn't have the energy for. And I didn't really, I mean, I knew because my mom had gone through cancer, my grandma had gone through cancer. I had known other women who'd gone through cancer, but I didn't take the time or energy to reach out to those. And that's just where I was at. But there really is such a huge, amazing, powerful group of women who have walked this path. It's not going to be your exact path. And I would just encourage you to reach out and be open and share where you're at, because I promise you that other person who's walked that path will love you even if they've never met you. They will support you. They will have your back, and it can become such a source of strength. So
beautiful. And that's exactly, what I appreciate when I have people on my, podcast, is because, we're not here to brag about our journey. We're here to step up and say, hey, it's okay. Yeah. You're going to be okay. Yeah. Regardless what you're going through, you're going to be okay. The cliche of this too shall pass, but it's true. Yeah. These too shall pass no matter what you're doing. But also what we're sort of saying as well is, this is why I have people like yourself, is because I want people to understand that there's just, be yourself, be the best version of who you were yesterday. That's it. You're not trying to reinvent the wheel. You're not trying to be anything other than yourself. What you're trying to say is, hey, here I am. Let me show you who I am. And you're expressing it through the boldness, the colors, who you are, which is beautiful. It really is. And, and I wish you and Rowan and your family
thank you
so much blessings, so much goodness.
Thank you so much.
Is he walking yet?
He's not. He's working on walking.
There you go. See? Don't worry. Once they get started, you'll be running.
Exactly.
But I really appreciate you sharing your story. You guys, you can follow Kristen Chester on her Instagram, on her Facebook. I'll have all the links below. She's also got giveaways. It says sign up for the Casa Danu newsletter to receive Kristen's exclusive Dolce Vita checklist. I can't wait. The thing is, we talk June, but June's actually just around the corner.
I know, it's crazy.
No pressure.
I am having, speaking of don't stress, don't struggle. I am kind of in the stress struggle, but we're going to get there. So,
you know what? Instead of looking at it as stress and anxiety, look at it as excitement, because the feeling of anxiety and the feeling of excitement are actually the same.
Absolutely.
So look at it as, I'm so excited. And I'm excited for you. I can't wait. And I'll definitely have you back on so we can talk about, and we can share this. We could actually, you could probably do this little, catwalk for us with your clothing.
I would absolutely love to, Grace. And it has been just an honor and just a pleasure speaking with you and being able to speak to your guests. And I'm here for anything that you need, or anybody that is listening needs. Don't hesitate to reach out.
And I always say that too. I always say, like you just said before, my story might not resonate with someone, but someone is listening or watching, it resonates with them. So I'm sure if you reach out to Kristen and say, hey, can I just pick your brain for 5 minutes and let you know, this is the thing what we love doing. We're not, as we both said, our journeys are all different, but we can say something that just puts a seed in someone, gives that person so much faith, so much hope, and so much understanding that there's more to it than just being the diagnosis. So I really, really appreciate your time. Like I said, I'm super excited for you. I wish you all the best. I'm proud that you're doing what you're doing. I see it. I see it through the camera. I see the boldness. I see the authenticity. But I also see the gratitude and the humbleness in you. So thank you so much for being on my podcast.
Grace. No, I've loved it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And to everyone else, like I say, thanks for listening in. And like always, I wish you so much love and light. I'm just going to turn that off.